If you've ever set goals and then quietly given up on them, this episode is for you. Let's simplify goal setting so it actually works in real life. If you're tired of feeling stuck in life and doubting yourself and want simple steps to stop overthinking, gain clarity, and start living your dream, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Sarah Tyke, a midlife mom, chronic overthinker, and your dream activator. I learned the secret of how to overcome self-doubt and stop overthinking. Take small, practical steps to create the life you dream of. If you're ready to see the possibilities, transform your mindset, and take the first step forward, grab a pen and a journal and meet me in the Dream Lab. Hello, and welcome to Reinventing Life After 40. I'm your host, Sarah Tyke, and today we are talking about goals and goal setting. So if you're an overthinker like me, setting goals it's important to keep you on track so you have an end point in mind. Now, we've also talked in the past about how we don't need to have a perfect plan. So you do need to have a goal because you have to have something to work toward. But a lot of times I get stuck in all of the details on how to get to that end point. And I have to have every single step planned along the way before I actually get started. And that's what we're all trying to overcome, because you don't need to have everything laid out. You do need to have some sort of an end point, but how to get there, you don't have to wait until you have every single detail started or finalized before you get started. And that's an important thing that I'm trying to convey to you, is that you don't need everything. You don't need everything perfect before you get started. Just get started. You see the end point, you see the goal, you know what you're working toward. Just do something. Take that first step. Don't worry about all the stuff in between. But goals are important to have. And a lot of times this happens to me where I set a goal. For example, I love writing. And so I have a great idea for a story, and I write fervently for days, maybe even weeks. Like, I actually will be consistent about it, and I'm working on it, and things are going, and it's really great. I'm like, this is such a good story. But then I feel like I run out of ideas, or at least that's, what I tell myself. And then I basically just have to stop, and I'm like, well, what would come next? And I start thinking about, what is the next step in the story, and then what would happen if they did that, if the characters went this direction, or if they went that direction, and then is it going to make sense if I do this? And I just start trying to figure out all the details between where I am in the story and the end of it. And usually I don't even have an end. Like, I have no idea how my stories are going to end. And so then I end up just not doing anything else, because now I have to, quote unquote, think about it. And I don't know maybe I don't have any ideas. Maybe I just want the story to be perfect so I don't have to go back and rewrite it. But eventually I just end up getting discouraged, and I put the whole thing aside, and usually I just end up not even finishing anything that I start. Another example for me is for weight loss, because I love planning workout routines and having food journals or exercise journals. I have an Excel sheet where I'm very detailed. I've got a drop-down menu of like recipes. I've got the carbs, fat, calories, sugar, salt, everything. And I love those kinds of details and taking data and getting all the information. I have a Fitbit tracker, and I love using all of these things. But the problem is that if I don't follow a workout routine, like if something kind of goes off the rails just even a little bit, I usually get very discouraged. And the workout routines are typically, like a 3-month plan or a 6-week plan. And they've got all the workouts mapped out, and you have a schedule for exactly what you're supposed to do every day. But if I get derailed, I'm usually pretty good for a couple of days or weeks. Once I miss a workout or two, I tend to get, again, very discouraged, and I just give up on the whole thing. So in each case, it's not really the goal that's the problem, because, writing a book, fine goal, weight loss, great. But it's my approach. I try to plan too much. It's good to have, again, those endpoints and have a few tools here and there, but I am trying to make things way more complicated. I'm not trying to make things. I do make things way more complicated than they need to be. There's too many things to track. There's such a set rigid workout schedule usually that I plan, and typically that's a good thing, right? If you have a workout schedule for each day, you know exactly what you're doing. You don't have to sit there trying to decide, on the fly, what should I do, and then give up on it. You've got it planned, you've got it scheduled, you've got it planned. Every day should just go great. And sometimes it does. But when it doesn't, then I get discouraged and I just have too many things going on. It just gets to be too complicated. Um, I don't even bother with taking measurements or doing like weights on the scale anymore just because it got to be too much for me. So those are all useful tools, but if you're an overthinker, those things can kind of turn into an obsession. And you get too focused on all these details, especially with weight loss. That's just a good example for me to use because there's so many options, there's so many things, and there's so much information out there. And if you really get into, again, the weeds of calorie counting and all of the nutritional counting and logging, it just gets to be too much. And then once you give up on that, it's kind of like, well, I might as well just give up on the whole plan because it's just never going to work. You get very discouraged. So I've actually given up on a lot of that, of those, using those tools, just because for me, they're not useful. It starts out useful. It gets to be too much. It gets to be too complicated. I get discouraged and then I quit everything. When you're in this situation where you've got these very, complicated goals, if you're trying to overthink things and do too much at once, it's important to just kind of step back. You take a breath, relax, and we can read in Proverbs 16:3, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. And in some translations, I think thoughts is translated as plans. So when you commit your ways to the Lord, your plans will be established. So he will help you get through and get your plans established. Also in Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. That's one of my favorite ones because of the lean not on your own understanding part, because a lot of times you might not understand how you're going to get to the end point, how you're going to achieve the goal, but you don't really have to lean on your own understanding. If you trust in God, he will help you. And if you are committing your ways to him and being obedient, he will help you and make sure that your plans or your thoughts are established. So, point 1, overcomplicated goals lead to inaction. And often this is because your brain just resists things that are too big or too unclear. Because when you have a very complicated goal, you've got all these things set up, like me with my weight loss tools, all of my very strict schedules, it just becomes too much. And then things almost become muddied. And then your brain just kind of shuts down like, well, I can't do it. It's too complicated. There's no clear path forward. There's too many things. So I'm just not going to do it. So you really need to try to simplify your goal, or at least kind of simplify some of the ways that you're going to use to get there. Point 2, focus on the process, not the outcome, because you can control your actions, not your results. So again, like in Proverb 3:5, lean not on your own understanding. So you may not really understand how a certain step or how a certain action is going to unfold, but if it's the right action to take, then you can just do it. And again, if you're kind of trusting in God, if you have faith, you can kind of trust that it will be the right action, that it is the right step. And you focusing on the outcome, a lot of times the outcome is focused on money. Like, how am I going to make money at this? How is this going to turn into a business? And that's something that's going to end up kind of holding you back, because you don't really know how things are going to unfold. And that outcome of how much money am I going to make, how successful is this business going to be, you can't often control that. So don't really worry about how things will, how they'll work out. You just worry about taking this step, take the next step, and that's it. So, for example, instead of saying, I want to write a book, maybe you just have your goal as write 10 minutes per day. Writing 10 minutes today will lead you to the final outcome of writing a book, but writing a book's pretty big, pretty vague, and there's not much you can do. You can just keep thinking about it. Someday I'm going to write a book. But then when you start focusing on process and action, like I'm going to write 10 minutes a day, now that's an action that you have to do. And then eventually, by taking that small action, that writing every day, you will be able to get that book finished. Or you could say, instead of I want to get in shape, say I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Because again, getting in shape is kind of a vague, amorphous term that can kind of linger forever. You never really have to do anything. You can just keep telling yourself, I'm going to get in shape. But if you say I'm going to lose 10 pounds, now you have a process. You're going to work on actually seeing some sort of reduction in weight. Or instead of running a marathon, I'm going to run for 10 minutes a day. So you kind of want to break down your outcome into a process and then focus on the process and the small actions that you're going to take. Point 3, consistency matters more than intensity. So small actions will build the momentum. So choose something that you can repeat easily. Again, having a 10 minutes per day of doing something small. So rather than, just jump into, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Okay, well, I'm going to start by losing 10 pounds. Or instead of losing 10 pounds, I'm going to start by losing 1 pound. Or don't even worry about necessarily the numbers. I am going to walk for 10 minutes a day. Something small. And then once you are established at walking 10 minutes per day, maybe then you try for 15 minutes. Or maybe you add in some strength training. So those small actions are what's going to build momentum. It's going to build your confidence because you're going to see results. If you're doing something small, if you're doing every day, something that you can repeat, you're going to build your confidence. You're going to want to do more. You're going to be able to do more. And eventually you will progress toward that goal. And I don't know if you've ever heard of SMART goals. This was a technique invented, I think, in the early 80s. And it's a way to set goals so that they are more manageable. So it's an acronym. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So your goals should be specific because, again, you want to know rather than just some vague term of, say, writing a book. You want more of a goal of I want to write for 10 minutes per day. They should be measurable so you actually know that you're achieving something. Again, achievable because they need to be small enough so that you can actually do them. Because if there's such big goals, like if your only goal is to run a marathon, that's pretty big. And you're not going to be able to walk out your door and run for 26 miles. You can walk out your door and walk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a quarter mile, or you can walk for some small amount. So your goals should be achievable and they should be relevant to whatever it is you're working on. If you want to run a marathon, you don't really need to worry about a goal of, I don't know, losing weight, like losing 10 pounds. That may help you run the marathon, but your goal should be relevant. The small steps should be relevant to the overall goal. And time bound, we talked about this in a previous episode about acting quickly. And it's important that you put a deadline on your goal because otherwise it kind of turns into, at some point I'll get to it. And then you never really do. So it should be something that you can do, or set a goal, set a time limit for that goal. Whether it's a week, a month, a year, set a time limit and write this down. We should write everything down when it comes to goals, I think is helpful because it kind of solidifies everything. So you have that deadline in front of you that you're always looking at. Okay, I've got to have this done in a month. I've got to have it done in 2 weeks. Okay, my deadline's coming up. It kind of keeps you on track. So your homework for today or this week is going to be to choose one small goal for the week. Make it specific and make it simple. So for an example, this is going to be like your writing for 10 minutes a day. So whatever it is you're going to do, you're going to work on whatever your step is for 10 minutes, 3 times a week. Every day if you can, once a week minimum. So one small goal, make it specific and simple. Make it something that's actually doable, and actually work on it. During that, we've talked about this 10-minute action window. So take that 10 minutes and work on that one specific simple goal. And a second thing I'd like you to do, if you have a chance, is to listen to a recording called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. It's about 35 minutes, and you can find it on YouTube pretty much anywhere. If you just search for Earl Nightingale, a lot of his stuff comes up. The Strangest Secret is the one I'd like for you to listen to. It's a very powerful recording. He was recording it as kind of a motivational speech for some salesmen on his team. I think he was going to be gone for a week, so he left this recording for them to listen to, and it just turned into this thing. They have a book. I think it's written in book form, or they've got it on YouTube. It's a really it's a really good recording to listen to as far as motivation and goal setting. And his main statement that he kind of builds this thing around is, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. It's a really good recording. Again, it's about 35 minutes. I'll post a link to the one that I like, because there's different versions online. They're all basically the same. I think it's more of just like an audio issue. I'll post a link to one of them that I like, but it's a really good recording. If you have a chance to listen to it, I highly, highly recommend it. So, to recap, point 1, goals don't need to be big or complicated. 2, focusing on the process makes follow-through easier. 3, small, consistent actions are what actually create progress. So as you're going through your homework this week, think about the question, am I making this harder than it needs to be? And that's going to be a big thing, because if you're an overthinker, you probably are making it harder. So if you find yourself thinking that, especially if you kind of start to feel overwhelmed with all of the decisions, all the choices in front of you, what do I do? Which is the next thing to do? Just stop and ask yourself, am I making this harder than it needs to be? And then what is just the next one thing that you have to do? All right, that's all I got for you guys. If you like this podcast, please share it. Please like it, follow it, give me a comment, a like, a subscribe. And if you found this helpful, please share it with someone who might also need help with setting goals. All right, thanks for listening, guys. I will see you next time. Bye. Hi, friend. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may want to get inspired to start living their dream? Also, please leave a review wherever you're listening. It lights me up to know that this podcast is helping you. Take a step forward today. It doesn't have to be big, but it does have to be done. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Bye.